Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, westerns. I've got the Rootin' Tootin' June on the Range tag for you. So this tag was created by the great Steve Donoghue, one of my fellow co-hosts on June on the Range, the Western-themed reading event, created by Michael K. Vaughan. So I can't remember who's tagged me in this, but I've definitely been tagged in it. So there are 10 questions, well, there's 9 questions, and then the 10th question is to tag some people. These are all, they're not necessarily all about Western books, but they're all themed around the kind of Western type stuff. So you'll see what I mean when I go through the questions. So anyway, let me crack on. So the first question is, a ways out west, have you ever been to the American West? I don't know really what counts as the American West, being English. I think I have. I've been to California. I don't know if that counts, but yeah, I've been to California. So my sister studied at the University of Santa Cruz in California for a year. So I went out and visited her for a couple of weeks and spent time in Santa Cruz and also visited San Francisco. So I guess California counts as the West, doesn't it? Because it's like the West Coast. That must do. But I don't really consider California to be the Old West. Although I suppose it's where like the gold rush was and stuff like that, wasn't it? So yes. Okay, next one then. Dry Gulch. What's the smallest town you've ever visited? So I can't remember what it was called, but when I was at university, I had a friend who was from Wales, and he lived in a very small town. It was a village basically, and I don't know, what's the difference between a town and a village? For this question, I just take town to mean a place where there are houses together. I think in the UK we tend to distinguish between villages and towns and cities and things like that, maybe more than people do in the States. Anyway, so this place, which I can't remember the name of, which is terrible, was basically, I think it was literally 6 houses and a pub. So yeah, it was like genuinely tiny. How small is your town right now? I'm going to have to check. Okay, sorry, terribly unprepared today for this video. So how small is my town right now? I've just checked. So as of the census of 2021, the town I live in had 23,676 inhabitants. So it's a kind of smallish town by UK standards, but it's got a nice kind of town centre to it. There's quite a lot going on. We have a farmers market and things like that, so it's quite a pleasant place to live, and it's by the sea as well, which is nice. Question 3, where the buffalo roam, have you ever seen an American... There's a number of parts to this question, all of which are about animals. So the first part is, have you ever seen an American bison in person? I don't think so. I'm fairly sure I haven't. Okay, and then the second part of the question is, or what's the largest hoofed animal you've ever seen? I don't know what counts as a hoofed animal. Is an elephant a hoofed animal? I don't know. I'm going to say an elephant. If an elephant has hoofs, or a giraffe. I've seen a giraffe as well, and they definitely have hoofs. So yes, either an elephant if you want kind of girth, or a giraffe if you want height. And then the final part of this question is, or do you have evidence that you live near coyotes? No, I definitely don't live near coyotes. Okay, question 4. Ol Doc Frye, what's your history with westerns, novels, TV, movies? So I guess like a lot of people of my age, so, I was born in 73. So, towards the end of the kind of dominance of westerns in popular entertainment. I do remember as a kid Bonanza, the TV show, being something we watched, and indeed my grandparents went to America, and they bought me back. Me and my sister, we both got these tin mugs, Bonanza tin mugs, so we got those and a little bag of fool's gold. So yeah, I definitely fondly remember Bonanza. But aside from that, during my childhood and teenage years, westerns were not really something I was that exposed to. I guess in the 80s, you had things like Young Guns, the movie I remember seeing. But yeah, westerns had kind of died out then, really. I did enjoy watching, so I was kind of, as a teenager, I was really into like cult movies and things like that, and enjoyed watching some spaghetti westerns, including one I remember really enjoying called A Bullet for the General, which I thought was fantastic, which had a really kind of felt like quite a shocking, revolutionary kind of an ending to it. So yeah, enjoyed the old spaghetti western. And then I also remember, so when I was 19, I went to the US, and travelled around and kind of stayed with friends of the family and things like that, and stayed in West Virginia with some people who I didn't know that well, but who were happy to put me up, who were the parents of a couple who lived like near my family in the UK. So these parents were a bit older. I guess I was 19, so they seemed really old. I guess they probably weren't that much older than I am now, but I guess they're kind of in their 60s, I guess. And one evening, the mum had like some event going on, like I don't know, some church event or like council, but some sort of local event thing that she needed to go to, or I think people were coming over to their house. So me and the dad had to get out of the house. So he was like, "We'll go to the cinema. You can choose what we're going to see." So they had the Twin Peaks movie was on, and I was like, I really want to see the Twin Peaks movie, but I know that A, he probably hasn't seen the Twin Peaks TV show, and B, it's supposed to be really graphic, and he's an older guy, and it will shock his socks off. So that's definitely not the right choice of film to go and see. So I decided instead we're going to see Unforgiven, the Clint Eastwood film, which had just come out, and I thought it was a western. He's an old guy, he's bound to like westerns. He clearly had not seen a film. He had clearly not seen a movie that wasn't like censored for TV in the States for decades, because and I suppose it is quite a graphic and quite a violent film and has quite a lot of swearing in it too. But he was just shocked to his core by Unforgiven, and it was, I think, quite a traumatic experience for him watching it. So that wasn't the best. It wasn't my best movie choice for going to see a film with someone that I've ever made. And I guess so books wise, it's only really recently that I've started reading westerns. So just before I started the channel, I started reading the Edge series of westerns, which I've got one of here. And I'm really enjoying those. And then last year, for June on the Range, I think, last June I probably read more westerns than I'd read in the rest of my life combined. So it's definitely a genre that I'm a lot more interested in now, than I was previously. Okay, question 5. Diamond Lil at the Rialto Saloon. What's your relationship with alcohol? Have you ever had a friendship with a bartender? So my relationship with alcohol, which I've talked about on the channel before, is that I don't drink. I haven't drunk for over a year and a half now, and the reason I don't drink is when I do drink, I can't stop drinking, basically. So my drinking was never something that really affected my my work life or my family life, my home life, but I became increasingly conscious over a number of years that if I had one drink, I'd have 10 drinks. I'm someone who, as soon as I've got a drop of alcohol in my system, it just awakens a hunger within me for more. So if I started drinking, I would basically go to bed drunk, which is not a good thing to be doing every night. So I stopped drinking. So that's my relationship with alcohol. Have I ever had a friendship with a bartender? I did, when I was at university, I did date a girl who was a bartender for a while, who was a bit of a hippie and used to enjoy not wearing shoes, and was constantly getting told off by the guy who ran the student bar for not wearing shoes because of all the bracket glass. It did seem a particularly silly thing to do. But yes, so I had a friendship / dating relationship with a bartender for a while. Next question, 6. The City Slicker from back east. What do you consider the best western you've ever read? I think it's probably True Grit by Charles Portis. I just thought that was such a fantastic book. So that's one of the ones I read last year, and I read a bunch of books last year for June on the Range that I thought were excellent. So that was one. The Oxbow Incident by Walter Van Tilburg Clark I thought was excellent as well. Shane I thought was excellent. But I think True Grit was the pick of the bunch for me. I think Matty Ross is just such a fantastic central character, and there's just so much going on in it. But it's all crammed into a really quite short book, less than 250 pages, I think. So whereas something like Lonesome Dove is a wonderful book, it does go on and on, not necessarily in a bad way, but to have got so much into a book and it be so short as well, I think is a real achievement. So I think True Grit is my pick for that one. Next question then, question 7. The man with the badge. Have you ever been in charge of other people? What's the most authority you've ever had, or would you be good at it? So I guess in my job I have been and am in charge of other people. So fairly early on in my career, so I work for a bank. Fairly early on in my career at the bank, I was like a team leader in a back office area, and at one point I had about 30 people reporting into me in the team, doing kind of data processing type tasks. Nowadays I work in a kind of change area, and I run a team that manage and deliver change onto like a system that's used by colleagues who work on the phones for the bank. So I've got, I don't know, kind of 20 people, I suppose, who don't directly report into me, but I'm responsible for making sure that the work they're doing is the right work. So I guess I've got responsibility. I guess I handle it okay, but people seem to think I do an okay job of what I do. Okay, question number 8. The Tombstone Kid. Have you ever fired a gun, been a gun aficionado, or been shot? So no to all of those questions. I fired like an air rifle. I think that's the gunniest thing I've ever fired. And I said this, I did say this last year in one of my June on the Range videos, I think, and some people frowned a little bit in the comments, but I do find the American obsession with firearms to be bizarre. And I do think some of it is rooted in Westerns. So I do think the whole kind of ethos of what it is to be American and the concept of the kind of the lone man who can make a difference, I think is something that very much comes from from the Western genre. Not clearly completely from the Western genre, but it's a key part of that genre, and I think has become ingrained in American culture, partly as a result of the Western. I know that there are many different views on this subject, and there will be many people watching this who disagree with me on this. But as someone who lives in the UK, where gun ownership is not a thing really, you can own guns, but you have to go through a lot of hoops, and you certainly can't own, can't easily own handguns and like semi-automatic weapons and things like that. The concept that a civilized society thinks it's fine for people to own guns, especially when there is such a terrible problem with gun crime in the States, is just mind-boggling to me. I literally can't get my head around it, how those things mesh together. It just seems very, very strange to me. Anyway, I'll stop going on before I lose any subscribers. Next question then. It ain't the bullet that gets you, it's the fall. How would you ideally like to cash in your chips? I think just at home doing something I enjoy doing, probably reading. So one of my wife's uncles died in the way I think I would want to die, which is it was the evening. He and his wife were sitting watching TV. He's having a cup of tea. His wife was tired, so she said, "Oh, I'm going to go to bed now. Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to watch a couple more things on TV, and then come to bed." And he just passed away in his chair. No fuss, no pain, just he was I think he just went very, very quickly. So I think that's the way I would want to go. Obviously, whenever anyone dies, it's horrible for the people who are left. But maybe a quick, simple ending like that is better for the people who are left as well. Okay, final question then is to tag some owl hoots. I think most people who I know who might want to do this tag, I think have done it already. I am going to tag Nettie from Digging Books, because I don't think she's done it. But yeah, I think most other people have done this one already, so I will leave it at that. Okay, hope you found that interesting. Now you know a bit more about me and my relationship with all things Western. So yeah, let me know in the comments what your answers to some of those questions might have been. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.